You're listening to the Screeners Podcast Network.
From the big screen to the small screen and everything in between, this is the Screeners Podcast, where all media is appreciated, but none is safe.
Hello and welcome to the Screeners Podcast. I'm Daniel, and we are back with a bonus episode. Joining me for this episode, I'm the only regular screener here today, but joining me is one of our regular guests, and that is my brother and co-host of the Next Trek podcast, Tyler Howitt. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
I am wonderful. Thanks for joining me for this episode. I don't know. I guess the rest of the screeners were scared off. I don't know. Maybe
I
they
don't
can't
blame
handle
them. It was, yeah.
Well, we'll get to our thoughts here in just a second. As always, we want to remind you to follow us on social media. We want to hear what you guys think. We want to hear what you think of the episode. Share anything you guys are reading. Just today, Bradley Knight shared a really interesting article about Solo and about some of the surprise cameos that were in that film. So he shared a great article with us just today. So we love that stuff. Let us know what you're reading, what you're seeing, because we really want to hear from you guys. So follow us on Twitter at ScreenersCast, and on Facebook you can search the Screeners Podcast. And if email's your thing, you can always do that. You can email us screenerscast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. All right, without further ado, let's dive into our bonus review of Hereditary.
It's heartening to see so many strange new faces here today. I know my mom would be very touched and probably a little suspicious. My mother was a very secretive and private woman. It's Grandma. You know you were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby, she wouldn't let me feed you because she needed to feed you. She was a very difficult woman, which maybe explains me.
I recognize you from your mother.
What? Sometimes I swear I can feel them in the room.
Oh my God! What's that?
The IMDb description reads, after the family matriarch passes away, a grieving family is haunted by tragic and disturbing occurrences and begin to unravel dark secrets. This is the feature debut of writer-director Ari Aster, and it stars Toni Collette, Millie Shapiro, Gabriel Byrne, and Alex Wolff, and the always unsettling Ann Dowd. This film premiered at Sundance earlier this year and was just released on the world, like it or not, this past weekend. Tyler, you watch a lot more horror movies than I do. You've kind of seen all of them. Every year you do like a, what do you call it, a Halloween? What do you call it?
Kind of 31 days of Halloween sort of a thing.
Yeah, so I don't do that. Horror is probably, out of any genre, that's probably my least watched genre. I like most of the horror movies that I see. I think...
You just got to be selective in what you watch.
Yeah, I think I just generally, I don't know. I just never feel excited about watching a horror movie. I think I prefer other genres. So, being kind of you and Chad's the same way. Chad's a real horror expert. He loves horror. But you're our horror expert of the two of us. So why don't you tell us what you thought of Hereditary?
Well, I actually, like I said, I saw it an hour ago, and so I'm really still reeling from it and trying to get my thoughts together. And the one word that works really well, I think, for this is unsettling. It is not a comfortable movie to watch. There's quite a bit of just graphic imagery in it, and I wouldn't even just say gore necessarily. There's just graphic things happening in the film, and the camera lingers on them, which is typical for some parts of the genre, but atypical for others. There's like some weird horror heritage going on here. There's elements of Rosemary's Baby, The Shining, The Babadook, The Witch, and a number of other really, even The Conjuring, some really unsettling films that you can tie to this. Overall, I mean, I'm still collecting my thoughts. It is a messed up, emotionally intense, draining film, but technically, I think perfect. I think it's a nearly pitch perfect film technically.
Yeah, so you described the film very well, described what it made you feel, and there's always the hard question with horror movies. Did you like it? Because you said it's unsettling. You said it's not an enjoyable film to watch because of how it is.
I don't think I liked it.
So you didn't like it overall.
I don't.
What's
I
your
don't know.
score? If you were to score it, what would you give it?
So I'm writing my review right now for Ready Steady Cut, who I write for, and I think I'm settled on a 3.5, and that's largely for the
Out of
5 out of 5.
Oh.
So weirdly, I think it's really, like I said, technically it's nearly perfect. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. It is really a disturbing movie overall, but at the same time, the performances, Toni Collette, that woman can do just about anything. And Alex Wolff, shockingly, coming out of, was it Paper Towns? Was that the one that he got big for?
I don't remember. He and his brother look exactly alike, so it's very confusing to me.
Who's his brother?
Nat Wolff. They look exactly alike. You're gonna click on
looking
him.
right now. This is weird.
So Alex Wolff was in Jumanji.
That's what I'm thinking. It was not
Yes.
Paper Towns. It was Jumanji.
But his brother Nate was he was the one who was in Paper Towns.
Oh my gosh! I
Yeah,
never put that together.
But they are basically identical. Like they look
You're
so
right.
much alike.
Okay. Wow. All right. The whole time. Yeah. That's at least I wasn't crazy off with that. Either way, he does a really great job in the film. He is. I think a lot of the performances. No, I don't think. I know a lot of the performances really rest on him being incredibly still and incredibly he has to be in such control of his body as he's doing a lot of this film, and I'm really impressed by him. He did a good job in Jumanji. He was fine there, but he does an amazing job. And Toni Collette, who has got a pedigree of weird things like the United States of Terra. She has shown her range there, but I don't know. I didn't really see this one coming. So
yeah, so you said you're gonna give it a 3 point. You're thinking about a 3.5 out of 5.
That's right. And I've gone up and down. I think I started at a 2.5 and then I brought it up to a 4 as I was writing my review. And so I think I'm settled on either a 3 or a 3.5.
So you didn't like the movie?
It's so weird. I don't think I liked it, but I really appreciate it. The attention to detail, the cinematography is so good throughout it. There are moments, and we'll get to some of this more in spoilers, but the way that it uses, and you're a camera person, so correct me if I'm wrong in my terminology here, but the way that it uses depth of field to really make you, it dissociates you from reality a few times in the film, and it's really excellent the way that they do that. And like I said, the acting and even the structure of the film, it doesn't take a lot of normal paths for horror films.
Yes.
It fakes you out. It really you think quite a few times, oh, okay, I know where this is going now. Oh, it's a haunted child movie. Oh, it's a haunting movie. It's this. And it really does, it takes a different turn most of the time, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So for my thoughts on the film, so you said you're maybe selling on a 3 or 3.5. I usually rate films out of 10. It's just the method I use. And so if you're giving it a 3 or a 3.5 out of 10, that would be a 6 or a 7, which to me is positive. For me, that's a positive score. And I'm going to give this film an 8 out of 10. I really like this movie a lot. And some things about this film, it's really not all that scary per se. It's just upsetting.
Yes.
Which is generally something I would say about a film I didn't like, but that's the point of this film. It's an upsetting film. It's supposed to upset you. But what's amazing about this film, especially, I can't get over the fact that this is a debut feature. That's shocking to me that Ari Aster had such a strong control of his film. What's amazing about it is that it's not concerned, like most horror films are, with feeding you jump scares all the time. There's very few jump scares, maybe a couple in the entire film. It's not a scary, in that sense, film. It's telling a story it's just upsetting and it's off, right? Everything is off. This movie is filled with dread.
Yep.
And it's also filled with surprises. The movie ended up being totally different from what I thought it would be based on the trailer, which the marketing was brilliant for this. And we'll obviously explain that more in spoilers. But yeah, this film is just so surprising. Like you said, a lot of times through the movie, you kind of, like with most movies, you guess, okay, so this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And every time it was like, nope, we're going to take you in a totally different direction.
Yep.
There's a scene here near the middle of the film that just floored me, that you know exactly what
Yep.
scene I'm talking about.
I stopped eating my popcorn at that moment. I had it in my hand, and I was like, oh man, good movie. And then this happens, and I literally leaned forward, set my popcorn down, leaned back in my chair with my arms folded across my chest, and went, oh my gosh, I'm in for a weird movie from now on.
And the entire audience in my screening was just sitting in silent shock.
Yep.
And it just changes the whole film, and it's brilliantly
It really is
done. And so I really enjoyed this film. The performances, like you said, from Toni Collette, I think Toni Collette is fantastic, but Alex Wolff particularly, I mean, this kid's 21 or 20 years old.
Yeah, 20.
And he was just fantastic. He was so internal and real, and he was just so believable. So I think he was fantastic. He's I already put him down on my list for so not to forget him in Best Supporting Actor as of right now. I mean, we obviously have all the rest of the year for Oscars, but I'm gonna keep remembering him for sure. His performance was amazing, as was Toni Collette. She was fantastic. So like I said, the fact that this is a debut feature is shocking because it's directed with such confidence. It's a gorgeous film. And the thing about the pacing of it is the film revealed itself so naturally. It doesn't build to either epic scares, and it also doesn't build to epic moments where this important information is to be discovered, like most films do, or especially horror films. They kind of build to this, now we're going to figure out this thing. This film doesn't do that. It just kind of happens naturally. Yeah. It never feels like a moment. It just feels like a real thing. Just like life, we rarely have these moments that build up. We usually just that something happened, and then tomorrow something else will happen, and it's almost matter of fact. And that's what I love about this film. It was so matter of fact, but it was also so tonally pitch perfect. And it was just filled with dread, and so that's really what I liked about this movie. There's so much that we need to talk about in spoilers, just because this film is just so it takes so many turns, and it's often bizarre.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. You said you probably never watch this movie again. I agree. I'll probably never want to watch this movie again. I think that's a sign that it achieved its goal.
Yes.
Because it upset me. It unsettled me. It filled me with dread and with curiosity and with anxiousness. And that's exactly what it was trying to do. So to me, this movie is a success all around, and I never want to see it again.
Right. And that I think is where I do agree with you, and why I went up in my ratings a bit with it, because you're right, it absolutely does what it intended to do. He had us, Ari Aster had us in the palm of his hand the entire time, and literally from shot one, when you don't know really what's going on, and he keeps recalling that image throughout the film in different ways or in different similar fashion, and it was a masterful film in that way. Did I like it? I'm like, it's, yeah, like, one of my big criteria for liking a film is rewatchability, and so I don't think I'd go there, but it absolutely, it is a master work, especially for a first time director.
There are two levels, right?
Right.
I mean, there's movies that you want to rewatch time after time, but there's also movies that affected you, that emotionally moved you, that you might not want to experience those emotions again. And this is one of those movies. It doesn't make it bad. Far from it. I think means that it accomplished its goal.
For sure.
So yeah, I think this is a fantastic film. Excellent debut from director Aster, and and man, I can't wait to see what he does next.
Yeah.
You know, I just now, as we were kind of getting started here, I see this quote from the director who said, so it says that during production, he often referred to the film not as a horror film, but rather a tragedy that curdles into a nightmare. And that's a beautiful way to put it, and that's exactly what this is.
Yep.
For the first half of the movie or more, I was kind of confused because I kept seeing posts online. Did you see a lot of people talking about this movie online?
Yes, everybody was going nuts over it.
Yeah.
Even you and Rachel wanted, both texted me and said you got to see Hereditary. When did you actually see it?
So I saw it the Thursday night that it came out, and I kept seeing people post about this.
Same.
My friend Matt Neglia from Next Best Picture, he saw this at Sundance, and so he's been talking about it nonstop since Sundance, and him and other people have been saying how scary it is, the scariest movie they've ever seen, and I actually disagree with him on that. This is not the scariest movie I've ever seen. And so for the first half of the film, I was kind of confused because it really is. It's just a tragedy. It's not a horror film for a lot of the movie. Now, it does delve into kind of more traditional horror elements at the end, albeit done in kind of a different way. But for most of the movie, it's just a really upsetting family with mental health issues. That's what a lot of the movie is. And
dealing with these horrible emotional, this trauma that they're...
trauma for sure.
And there's a moment, and without spoiling it, there's a moment where they literally say, "This is either going to bring us together or break us apart."
Yes.
And you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's that's
it's
what
probably
this is
going to
about."
break them apart.
Yeah, that's this kind of movie. Yeah, it's it. All right, you're maybe swaying me a little bit more, but I still think I can't see it again, but it did its job so well.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the type of movie that you. Well, for me, that kind of the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, the more I talk to other people about it, the better it gets because I just realize how much it did its job. Yeah. So before we dive into spoilers, we always go around the thing we do here. We decide if we recommend that you see this in theaters, if you rent it on iTunes, Amazon, somewhere like that, if you stream it on a service you already have, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, or if you should skip it altogether. Tyler, would you inflict this film on others?
I have a question first. So, do you guys take it? I think I've asked this when I've been on here before, but do you take into account MoviePass as a subscription, or is that a theatrical experience? You don't delineate.
We've kind of gone back and forth on that. I think Chris has mentioned that as a subscription. We probably need to revise our template there, but kind of as a subscription, it kind of makes sense.
So I would say it really does depend on what you want. If you are, I went with some people who I thought, oh, this is going to be a fun little horror film. It'll be great. And they don't watch horror movies. So I had to profusely apologize at the end of I didn't know what was coming. But I think this is, again, I like horror movies, and I think this is a movie experience. Horror movies are at their best when they are in a dark theater with a great crowd, or at least a good group of friends, and you guys can gasp together and you can laugh together and kind of look sidelong at each other to see if who's crying or who's panting. But I think that so I say see it in the theaters, especially if you have MoviePass. You got no excuse. But if you're
I'll give him an excuse on this one. You got an excuse. If you can't handle it, don't see it.
That's true. I'd say if you can handle your horror, see it in the theater. If not, see it at home in a well lit room. But maybe see if you can stomach see it in theaters. I'd go there.
Yeah, very similarly, I think there's an element of beauty as much as the film is rough. It's a beautifully shot film. I agree. Look, I'm somebody who doesn't take in a lot of horror. I don't watch a lot of horror movies, but this is a very good movie. Now, I generally agree. I think the two types of films that are best seen in theaters are comedies, so you can laugh with a full theater, or horror movies, so you can scream with a full theater. But with Hereditary, it's kind of a different story. There's not as, like I said earlier, and I don't believe this is a spoiler. It's not a very scary film in terms of jump scares, screaming audience. I don't think there's a single scream in my audience, because it's just not that type of horror movie. This is the type of horror movie that's more upsetting, that will fill you with anxiousness and dread. So take that into consideration. If you can handle that in the theater, I took my pregnant wife who hates horror movies to see this, and she was fine. She actually enjoyed the film as much as you can enjoy this film. And so, I think you can handle it. Trust yourself. You can handle it. So if you can do that, see it in theaters. Otherwise, turn the lights on, like Tyler said, and watch it at home in the middle of the day, and you'll be fine. So this is definitely worth seeing. So my ultimate recommendation is theater worthy. All right, and with that, we're going to dive right into spoilers.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Well, you look nervous. Is it the scars? You want to know how I got them?
There's so many places it would never occur to Hawk to hide. However, the reason the Führers brought me off my Alps in Austria and placed me in French cow country today is because it does occur to me. Because I'm aware what tremendous feats human beings are capable of once they abandon dignity.
And in the dream, I knew that he was going on ahead. He's fixing to make a fire somewhere out there in all that dark and all that cold. And I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. And then I woke up.
So, Tyler, we have to start with the car crash.
Oh, my gosh.
It's not a car crash, but the accident.
Yeah.
So, just to recap, we're talking about the scene. You've already seen the film where Charlie has unintentionally eaten some peanut remnants or nut remnants, and she's having an anaphylactic shock of some kind, and Peter is driving her as fast as he can to the hospital, and she's freaking out, and she sticks her head out the window to get more air. Peter swerves to miss a deer. In a dead deer in the middle of the road, and Charlie's head collides with a telephone pole, and she's dead. She's decapitated. And we don't see anything gruesome in that scene. That's what I love. In that scene. That's what I love about that scene is you're not entirely sure what happened. Yep. I mean, she's dead. There are no noises. There's nothing coming from that back seat. All we see is the close-up of Peter's face, which is amazing.
Yes.
So what did you think of that scene?
Like I said earlier, I was eating popcorn, thinking, hey, this is a horror movie, a popcorn horror movie. I'm, going for it. And I stopped, set my bag on the ground, and looked straight ahead for the rest of the movie because I thought, oh, this just got way different than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And the same with everybody else in my group. They all one person had seen it before, and he grinned from ear to ear when I did that, because he knew it was coming. But everybody else in the group was like, oh man, and we all like sunk down in our chairs a little bit too when it happened. Yep. And even just pushing further beyond that scene, even how it's revealed, you're thinking, is he going to tell his mom? Is he going to tell his dad? He parks the car, walks up to his bed, crawls into bed, and lies down, and not even really to go to sleep because, again, one of the things that's so impressive about this movie is, and Alex Wolff's performance is, he does the terrified, petrified, shocked stare so well, and you hear Toni Collette go downstairs and say, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go out to pick something up. I forgot what it was, and I'll be back in 20 minutes. Do you need anything? And you know what's gonna happen, and the camera never leaves his face. And much like this film doesn't have a lot of jump scares, this film does reveals in so many good ways. I really appreciate that. You just hear the scream. And then you see her writhing on the ground in agony, with the death of her daughter. And this film is just it does things technically, and that's the type of film that this is. It's not one to scare you with some gruesome, grotesque death of the daughter. We don't even see the death. We see a little bit of the aftermath, but this film is just a tragedy. That's the best word for it. That film is tragic. That the entire way that scene unfolds, you could see that in a tragic
Oscar drama.
Absolutely.
Right? There's nothing about that entire sequence that's horror-esque.
Honestly, if you take the supernatural element out of this, and it is an Oscar-worthy family tragedy. Absolutely,
yeah.
It is.
And that's what I love about this film is that it does not approach itself as a traditional horror movie. It's just a film that's naturally scary.
Yeah.
And that scene in particular is just brilliant. And it really, really sold me on the film. And as soon as it happened, I don't know if you did this, as soon as Charlie hit the telephone pole and we just sit there looking at Peter's face, we don't really know the fate of Charlie, we assume. All we're doing is sitting there staring at Peter's face. I ran the trailer back through my brain, and I was like, wait, I thought this film was going to be all about Charlie. The way that the trailer sets it up, this is a movie about the daughter, and about her relationship with Toni Collette, with her mom. And then all of a sudden, whatever it is, like 40 minutes into the film, 45 minutes, she's dead. And so I ran the trailer back into my brain, and I was like, oh, yeah, we've already seen all of those scenes. So, yeah, I guess she's dead. I don't know what's coming up next. Did you kind of rethink that?
Well, first, I love when movies do that. But honestly, I knew nothing about this movie going into it other than Toni Collette was the star.
You hadn't seen a trailer?
I hadn't seen a trailer. I had seen a poster going into the movie today.
That's crazy. So, well, that's even better. But yeah, the marketing here is brilliant because even if you had seen the trailer, Chad often, I'm curious to see what he says. We can follow up with him about his thoughts on Hereditary later on. But he avoids trailers.
I've been doing that more and more lately.
And that's great, but I didn't for this film. In fact, I saw the trailer numerous times, and it kind of helped in a weird way because
it built up your expectations in one direction. That's cool.
Exactly, and then it totally halfway through the movie or less skewed. It threw off all my expectations, and I realized, oh, this isn't a movie about the daughter. This is a movie about the son, and the mom. And so,
the way that even I will say the way that they set up the movie again, because we're 45 minutes in, the daughter is eerie. She acts in very strange ways.
She's off.
She's off. She cuts off the head of this bird that hits the window and things like that. So
hashtag foreshadowing.
Oh man, seriously. And she really just, the film does focus on her, and then it's taken away, and oh my gosh, this is not what we think it is. And then there are, I would say that, like I said before, this film decides to take different turns for quite a lot of the moments of it. So like that, we thought it was about this girl, and it's not, but it kind of is, because she's
sure.
the intended receptacle for Pyman. But at the same time, it's not a traditional horror movie, a haunting movie. There's two times where you see an apparition, but one time it turns out to be a dream, and the second time it probably is an apparition. But it does a good job, because every single time they're in a darkened room, and again, this is a horror movie, so lots of darkened rooms, I'm looking in the corners to see something, and so and it was perfect, because we never saw something again, and we're just left with that. They're teasing us in such a brilliant way.
Yeah,
I think I have issues with the end, and we can get to them, or if you want to get to that now. But that was where I really had a hard time with my liking of the movie, was the end. But
well, because so we can definitely go there. So the movie kind of does take a distinct turn. It builds to its conclusion extremely fast.
Yes,
because. And I appreciate it because, like I said, this movie unfolds naturally, and I think in the real world, if crazy crap with demons and demon kings unfolded, it's not going to take its time. As soon as this stuff starts happening to you, it's going to happen fast, or you're going to run away. And so that's what I appreciated, is that as soon as Annie kind of brings this spirit to the house, and as soon as it inhabits her, it all kind of happens real quick.
Yeah, and what I really loved is when she does that, when she switches personalities, which again she had quite a lot of rehearsal for that in United States of Terra, and when she does that, you get a lot of the sense of what's about to come. They foreshadow that really nicely, but again, Alex Wolff, Peter, his character does such a good job of being terrified. This isn't again, in a normal horror movie, there's always that one character. You expect the kid, usually the teenage boy, to be like, I know what's going on and I'm going to investigate now. No, this kid has the crap scared out of him, and he's beaten up and he is tormented, and it's horrible and horrifying what's happening to him in front of his eyes, because he also didn't murder his sister, right? It's not like he hated her and he's happy she's gone. This is a horrible tragedy that could happen to anybody. No one is there to pick up the pieces. The dad is trying, but the mom is going nuts at the same time. It's just, it is that unraveling happens so quickly, and it's so raw that's what's so unsettling about it too.
So my friend Will Mavity posed a question. We were talking about the film. Do you think that the cult orchestrated the accident somehow?
I've been thinking about that. They must have. Oh, you know what? I think absolutely they did, because we get a shot later on of the that symbol that was on their necklace etched on that telephone pole. Now, they could have been done afterward because that's where she died, but I think somehow it was orchestrated.
See, that's the thing. I just don't... given the rest of the film, I don't see how they could have orchestrated that.
That's my problem. And so that's where, when you begin thinking about how it worked, that's where I begin having problems with the film. And where it does, after all of these really great misleading turns, it goes directly at the very last minute, for the last, 5 minutes after he gets up into the attic, it goes directly into familiar territory. And I was like, oh man, really?
Well, kind of, but it's still, it never resolves. It's the film ends, with Peter becoming Paimon, this demon king. It never.
Have you seen Rosemary's Baby or The Witch?
I have not seen The Witch. I have seen Rosemary's Baby.
And have you seen Paranormal Activity? Is it 3? Or 2?
Probably. I have seen those. I don't remember them very well.
So they all end that same way. Now of course, horror movies can end. Sure. Come on, there's thousands of them, and they all end with very similar things. But that was my issue with it, is they took so many turns that kept me guessing. And like you said, I see so many horror movies, so I can usually predict pretty solidly. And I kind of wish it hadn't gone with naked cult leaders worshiping him in the end. I don't know. I don't have a replacement of what I think they should have done. So
yeah, because you're literally talking about the last 2 minutes of the movie. I mean,
exactly. That's the only thing.
You definitely. There's no way you predicted the way things went in the attic, like with him running out the window and dying and getting the spirit inhabiting him and all that stuff.
The moment though when he saw his dad dead on the ground. I did not predict freaky Toni Collette levitating. That was terrifying.
Sawing her head off.
And sawing her own head off. But see, there's some of those things that I didn't like. And again, that might be the intention, and that just might be me. Where one thing that I do like from a horror film is for it to be I don't need it to be wrapped up, or I don't need the good guy to necessarily win. I don't need a final girl necessarily. But what I do need is, I guess, a bit more explanation, or what I want. From The Conjuring, we know why things were happening, and it made sense. But for all of its reality, and for all of this, even a possession movie, the levitation didn't work for me. It didn't make sense. It was effective, but it didn't fit into the box of everything else.
Why not? She had the spirit in her.
But why is it levitating suddenly? I don't know why. I don't know why there was a disconnect for me with that, or why is she cutting her own head off why is
she was cutting her head off because, well, for
to
one,
mirror
she needed
Charlie.
She needed to die, and so she was dying in the same manner that Charlie died because she's got Charlie's spirit or the spirit that was in Charlie in her now, and she needed to die so that the spirit could go to Peter.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I have a problem with it for some reason. And again, we're talking the last 2 minutes of this movie, so it doesn't taint everything. But that was what dropped it a point or so for me. Was I think for all of that, I can get the cult orchestrating it. I can get the spirit inhabiting it and making them do stuff. I can. It was like one step too far. For me, if it had just been, even if she had honestly been on the ground and killing herself, but I don't see why did she have to cut her head off, and that tells me why, by the way, that they probably did orchestrate it is because for some reason we needed a headless corpse. But how did they orchestrate that? How do you go about orchestrating it? It was one of those things where I feel like they tried to put a couple too many things in place to look as though it was all organized, and either it needs to be this gigantic, vast conspiracy that we know about, or it has to just be shocking deaths at the end, no explanation. But we got almost enough explanation, and then not. So that I don't know.
Yeah, I disagree because I definitely didn't feel I bought it all because. It made sense. The spirit was in her. That's why she was levitating. Just because you can ask why did Gabriel Byrne explode into flames?
And that I was okay with that. Weirdly, I thought, because this is a trickster king kind of a god thing, it says, and I was like, oh man, it was taunting her. It wanted her to do that, so it wanted her to think she's going to catch on fire if she does it, so that she'll try and sacrifice herself. Right. It's a way of offing the dad, and I really liked that. I thought that was well done. And so it's, the other thing, gosh, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. Where the crap did the dog come from?
See, I'm forgetting a dog.
So there's a dog. That's why that was a weird, distracting misstep for me. Was it's when he sees Charlie in the corner, right? And she nods down and her head falls off and it turns into a ball, which was such a good moment in that movie. And then he turns. I think it's in the same scene. He turns and there's a dog barking in his doorway. Barking, crazy, and then the door slams, and the dog starts whining and runs away. And then at the very end, we see, after he's fallen on the ground and before he goes up into the treehouse, there's a dead dog lying on their lawn. And I was like, did they have a dog before? Did I miss that? And it was one of those. It actually felt like that was an editing issue. Like they had a storyline with a dog, and then it got cut out, but they couldn't cut out that moment or something. I don't know. It was.
Yeah, I don't remember that enough. So yeah, I guess obviously the dog wasn't important of enough character. Obviously, but that didn't stick with me, so I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, overall, I think it sounds like we both admire this film in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely.
I think we see the climax differently. I think, in my opinion, I feel like it was executed really well, really, really realistically. I mean, as much as this kind of story can be realistic, and so it was creepy and frightening and upsetting, and I loved when he leapt out the window, and just the way that the film took its time in that moment. You don't know what's happening here.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think that was great, and the spirit inhabiting him, and then the film kind of wrapping up from there. Yeah, very interesting. Very good. Anything else you want to say before we kind of wrap things up here?
Did this film? This is not really spoilery. We could have said this elsewhere, but did this feel like an American film to you? I don't know if this is a weird thing to ask, but it felt like, weirdly, I felt like I was watching an Australian film, or even it's very stark in what it gives, and
it is,
and maybe it's like it felt very often. I don't know if I said this earlier. It felt like the Babadook a bit, where it's this mother slowly kind of going crazy as things are unraveling around her, and it felt so you couldn't place it in America. I feel like the license plate said Utah, but I don't know if that's true. You couldn't place a location with it. It was there was a storm outside, and then it was really arid at another time, and I think they shot it in New York and LA. I think I remember that from the credits. But
they actually shot it in Utah.
Oh, did they shoot it in Utah? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but I think it's supposed to take place in I think that it's in New York. I feel like I remember them referencing that.
Okay, maybe they did. And maybe I saw a Utah license plate and that they just didn't scrub out. But
yeah.
But it was, so it just felt different to me in such a weird way, and maybe that's just the indie film nature of it.
Sure.
But man, I do technically really respect the film, and like I said, for all of my griping, it was 3 minutes at the end. It does not diminish what it does building up to it.
Yeah, I agree. I really like this movie, and I haven't seen The Babadook, which is Australian, so I'm sure that kind of
Oh, you got to watch
helps.
The Babadook.
I'm sure
if you like this, you got to watch that.
Yeah, but yeah, I really enjoyed it quite a bit. Well, if that's all we got, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of the Screeners Podcast. Tyler, where can people find you?
Well, on Twitter, I just randomly talk about movies and lots of Star Trek things on @TylerHowitt, and also for the Next Trek podcast on @TheNextTrek on Twitter. And we're Chris and I are kind of on a hiatus, still trying to figure out what we're going to do in the meantime during while Discovery is off air. But we'll work that out, and we will be back and kind of get back on track pretty soon. But in the meantime, I'm on summer break. I'm a teacher, and I'm on summer break, and so I'm going to see movies like crazy.
And you can read a lot of his reviews and writings on Ready, Steady, Cut as well.
Including a review of this and Adrift, which is coming out hopefully tomorrow too, which was a weird movie.
There you go. I haven't seen that one. You can always follow Screeners on Twitter @ScreenersCast. You can follow me on Twitter @HowittDK. And we will see you for our next episode where we review Incredibles 2. See you next time.
And that's a wrap. You've heard what the Screeners had to say. Now you be the critic. Head over to screenerspodcast.com and let us know what you think. See you next time.